Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. If you're out there streaming somewhere, we're on Rockfin, YouTube, Facebook, I believe as well. And we just got off of the KronoLaunch Chronicles podcast. I'm going to pull up the website here. I'm really excited to share this. Not all the stuff going on my screen. Don't worry about all of that. But the but the show was really fun, and we kind of having the KronoLaunch party. It's the first day of spring. Welcome to it, everybody. KronoLaunchChronicles.com. Check that out. We just kind of got started with that. We did a stream here, as you can see on the website. There's even a chat room where you can launch gifts into the chat. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. So I've got all the folks from that inaugural episode here with me now, and I'll start introducing everybody. I really appreciate you guys for kicking it with us, and we are going to talk about the show. I want to talk a little bit about what I've personally been studying and learning and kind of picking up on as well. But we'll go ahead and get started. I want to start off with you, Bill, because you're really the big impetus and the driving force, from my perspective, at least, behind this new podcast, this exploration, which Chrononaut, a lot of people know Kronos, they think Saturn. Folks around here, I don't think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Saturn, like kind of like that. But obviously, what you're looking into here, and we did a little bit of mythology even on the first episode. So I will refer people to it to go check it out. It'll be out tomorrow, actually. So you're going to want to check that out. Spotify, all the places that you listen to podcasts. But in context, KronoNaut Chronicles, talking about time, traveling through time, and what that entails. Tell us a little bit about the show and why you wanted to get it going.
Well, thanks for having me, Owen. I think you can hear me, right?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, awesome. KronoNaut Chronicles, it was spawned just out of a creative desire that I had shortly. It's been percolating for some time since doing 13 Questions. Adam Loyal, who's here with us also, he is co-host with me on 13 Questions. That show itself isn't limiting per se, but it is kind of a very structured show in which you have very defined parameters to operate within. So I wanted to expand, and we just talked about expansion, but to expand more into different topics and more woo-woo type things, and open up hold a space where we can continue with these oddest conversations that we've had on 13 Questions and approach it from a space of love and not fear, and one of empowerment too, right? My hope is that people walk away or when they stop listening to an episode of KronoNaut Chronicles, that they will feel empowered and confident and uplifted, right? So it's just my little love spell for the world. Really.
I love it, dude. That's really well put. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we talked a little bit about talking about how podcasts kind of are spells, what spells are. We can go a little bit more into that too, potentially on this episode. I know people are going to jive with that. I'll go to you now, Derek. Tell us a little bit about your involvement and what brought you into this project.
Yeah, and actually it was Bill initially, of course, and I love the aspect of working into time or out of time, and looking at all the different ways to play with that. And then again, bringing all these individuals together, all five of us, it's, how can it not be entertaining and fun, and then go in every direction imaginable, and then 50 more that we can't imagine. So no, I think it's interesting. The first episode was just that. We went, again, all directions, and that's a great thing. So we had a lot of good time.
Yeah, man. It was a great time, and you have such incredible insight into all those different directions that you're talking about. That's pretty vast, and I'm excited to get into some more depth here live. So thank you for being here. Adam, I want to bounce over to you and just talk about your guys' relationship and how much you've grown and what you've discovered through doing the podcasting thing. I think you have a natural ability, a great hosting presence to do this thing. So I'd love to hear from you as far as, your involvement with the show and kind of what your expectations are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, me and Bill go way back years, hosting 13 Questions together. So when he had this idea come into his head, he asked me to join, and sounded like a really fun thing to jump into, and it was. So yeah, I am here because of Bill, and yeah, we had a wonderful run together, and I'm glad to see that continue. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and you actually brought Taro in to the show that we just did, and did a spread, which is awesome. See, I didn't know that you were into all the woo-woo stuff, so that's kind of new to me, but I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and I had forgot to do my tarot spread today. I've been picking it up heavily within the last week. I neglected it for many, many months. And yeah, so it just seemed the right time to do. So yeah, it's always nice to find people who appreciate the tarot.
Yeah, man. Wu-Tang. Let's hear it. All right. So that brings me to my good friend Ben, also known as the Starpilgrim. I guess I didn't really know that you got, well, I guess I got referred to Bill through you, if I'm not mistaken, somehow or another. But it seems like our worlds were going to collide pretty much no matter what. but Ben, can you talk about how you guys met and kind of how you got down, how he sort of wound up here?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really is weird, I guess, in the classical definition of the word, being destined and sort of mystical and magical. We met through another podcast chat room, the Grimerica show. All friends of ours here. So yeah, and the fact that I was actually I signed up and started participating in that chat room was sort of out of character and odd for me at the time, but now seeing how it's played out, I understand how the universe operates a little more, or at least I try to every day. And it was just, perfect timing and right place, right time, and found a soul brother for sure. So, and then I was on 13 Questions for the I've been on a couple times, so it was on a first time a couple years ago now, and knowing how that show was kind of operating, and always looking for interesting people. I've given him a few names over the years, but yours was top of the list once we started talking and kind of got a feel for the vibe. I'd heard you on a few other things and followed you on Instagram, but once we started talking, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's right up Bill's alley.
Yeah, and I don't know, I for some reason was sort of inspired, maybe you'd say, to reach out to you, and I don't know. I'm glad I did. I'll say that. Yeah. And so, Bill, you and Adam have another show for folks out there who are checking this out. It's also called 13 Questions Podcast. And that's a podcast where you guys interview men specifically about, and you have 13 questions, which have slightly changed, I think, over the course of time a little bit, but pretty much it's the same 13 questions. So that's an awesome podcast too. And I'll also refer people to that show as well. You can find Derek on there, myself and Ben, as well as many other very fascinating people. Did you ever get Stavish on there?
Yes, we did. This is
Yeah.
one of our-
Yeah, I need to listen to that one. Yeah, but you guys had Tom Campbell on there. That was an excellent episode. There's a lot of really good episodes. Yeah, so I wanted to make mention of that for sure. And the Grimerica guys too, huge shout out, man. Those guys are great. They bring a lot of amazing people together. Those retreats, I've done 2 of them now.
Oh yeah, that's how I got into podcasting, entirely because of the Grimerica guys. And definitely check out that list, because when Darren and Graham were hosting it, they had the likes of Glover on and Duncan Trussell. We had Dean Radin on the show. So some really, really interesting people we've been able to speak to.
Yeah, that's incredible. Incredible. Yeah. So keep up that good work, guys. And yeah, we want to kind of roll into this more, I guess, expansive sort of terrain of this mystical, this mysterious kind of ethereal. I don't mean to just throw mumbo jumbo around here. Derek is gonna come in here and correct my vernacular, but just the more mysterious things, like what is going on. I mean, one of the things that boggles my mind all the time is, like, you could ask the question, "What is reality?" to 100 people, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Howie Mandel, whoever. Nobody's gonna have an answer for you, really. I mean, here we are, right? So it's just maddening in a way. But as we continue to explore the terrain, because I'm just a curious person, I want to know why. And I've always kind of had that tendency. Maybe even it might even be a little bit of a tick. But that just continues to unravel and unfold. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. And you learn a lot as you go. It doesn't mean that you don't get to quench your thirst for knowledge or information at times, but there's always more to know. There's always more to learn. And we're all here to learn and understand how we're working, how we're creating. We talked a little bit about manifesting, which is a very popular topic. A lot of people probably who listen to this show are pretty interested and talk a lot about that as a concept. And I think we mentioned it too on that show. There's something to our thoughts. There's something to the images. There's something to the pre-programming, back to that whole thing. Like, the more that you see something, we were talking a little bit about the archetypes of the tarot, the more repetition, it's like we're creating the reality ourselves. And there are these somewhat influencing factors, right? We could call them pendulums. The book that I'm reading now, this one's called Dream Searchers. It's also like a Russian book. It's the second one. And we have a book club right now that we're doing. And they call them, I believe, jumpers. But the same idea of an egregore, same idea of a pendulum or whatever, like a thought form, a cluster. But the way they describe it in this book is they say this is the thing that the Bible calls demons, are these entities that are jumpers. They're jumping or whatever. And it's the same idea that we talk about with egregores, with pendulums, with spirits, with ghosts. Maybe not as much, but still some sort of cluster of energy. As Ben was saying before, everything is energy. And I think there's something interesting to this. They're talking a lot about balance. They're talking a lot about not giving your hand out publicly, right, to the universe. That these jumpers, they will look for your weakness. And, if you're too exuberant, let's say, and you're just just cheesing hard, then it has to balance itself out. So you have to kind of maintain some sort of a calmness, a coolness. Anything erratic is sort of out of balance, and it will kind of it will squash it. That's one of the things that it's talking about. So in the spirit of the idea of manifesting and bringing stuff to you, and with Derek saying, hey, just manifest that shit, you know, like I'll say it here on our show, like just manifest that shit. And it's, and that's true. But when we're talking about like Neville Goddard and the desire, and I think there's a line, and Bill, you even mentioned it, where it's like excitement versus, well, what was the other word that you used? I think it was passion, because that passion can come through positive, negative. It's reflecting against the mirror, right? And it's going to come back however that passion is. It's like, I just want this tooth. You told your tooth story, right? Like you get frustrated. You're like, I just want, you know, this. And then all of a sudden that passion is reflected, bam, lickety split, because it's just being really, that's a lot of intention behind that, you know? So, I say all that to say, I would love to talk a little bit about that, maybe even share some experiences. I can give one, for example, of a couple of years ago when I was driving to this workshop that I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I could actually afford to do this workshop. I was so stoked. I was driving to Atlanta and I was just like super cheesing on the highway, like biggest smile, you know, and then all of a sudden, bam, flat tire. Right. So of course I pull off and I'm trying to change the tire. I've got this piece. I don't have that piece. I can't seem to figure it out. I pull off to a little gas station. And then I actually made it all the way to a tire shop. They didn't have a tire that would fit my car. They didn't have a spare either for sale. So I just had to leave my car there and take an Uber. I finally made it, but they were cool too. It wasn't like a huge disastrous thing, but I really kind of felt the sort of, it's like if you've ever had, you know, like a romantic relationship would be a great example here, right? Like there are a few examples that I could use for that, where you kind of get a little bit too excited, you know, and it's like stepping on that, not a step on a ladder, you know, the one that folds out, you know, you just get a little too excited and you step on there. And so, I you know, in the spirit of understanding balance and being able to, without a whole lot of extra energy, manifesting things, just simply moving toward them, right? Like just using that flow, whatever the tarot is, but using intention to calmly, without, you know, scurrying up too much of this, the jumpers, the pendulums, the spirits, the things that kind of deter you from your goal. Yeah. In thinking about that, I would love to hear your guys' take on how do you sort of navigate that, the excitement, the overjoy of having the thing, whatever that is. Because it's very easy for me to visualize, very easy for me to get excited about something. But it's also very easy for me to go overboard on that excitement, right? And I think that can actually have a negative effect on you, or the outcome of the manifestation, what have you. It's like the more you think about being on stage, for instance, the more nervous you're going to be when you get on stage.
I do have some input in that, because I've seen it work both ways, Owen, so I'd say when you're excited while you were driving, because I've had a similar circumstance, and it's high energy. Now it's how that individual perceives it on whether it's positive or negative. So in your story, yeah, initially bad tire, blown tire doesn't mean a bad thing, but let's just say maybe you spin it in your head such, because that's part of reality, that it just saved you from getting in a car accident. Sure. Another mile down. Okay, you know, we all know these things. There's lots of ways we can do that. That is an absolute thing. So when all is said and done here in 3D, if you choose to say, it happened, it's meant to be for whatever reason, you just put yourself in a certain state of being or frequency of, you know, you can call it love frequency or be open, and then you can continue that way. Or you could have chosen the opposite, gotten in a bad mood, pissy attitude, gone out in life, and guess we all know what happens. Like attracts like in this universe. It'll pile on. So I wouldn't say, look at that instance that you said, I would see it as a big energy thing. It happened, and always look at it a different way. And that's one way of looking at it, I guess you could say.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and I agree with Derek a little bit too, that the excitement is important, I think, in manifesting, whether it's a thing or an outcome to something. The excitement, it can be the feeling and the driver for it to come into reality. But I think holding on to that excitement can be detrimental. So letting go of any expectation of it is really important too, right? But maintaining that initial idea of the excitement will transfer down the line to an overall better outcome. But if you're not attached to it at all, then yeah, I think that it goes into the thing about being grateful for it all too, right? So if that flat tire did eventually save some other catastrophe, and you can find the shining star in the experience, then it keeps you in that flow as well.
Yeah. I managed it pretty well as far as things go. Like I didn't freak out or anything. I'm sorry, Adam. I saw you unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying the mindset I like to take is that the universe is conspiring for you, not against you. And just taking that as kind of a holistic thought, you don't have to drill too much into it. You can kind of just look at the destination of, yeah, this did happen, but what could have happened? I could have gone through a guardrail. So, if I had that future, I'd go, man, if only my tire blew. So
Sure.
That's my worldview.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And in the moment, like I said, I'm pretty tempered. So I don't really freak out, for the most part. Every once in a while. Well, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so when it takes Stripe 7 days to debit my account or whatever, to get money to somebody that I owe money to, I start freaking out. But for the most part, I'm really really even keeled. But I want to unpack the nuance of manifestation for people. I know people have these experiences. They're trying to do this, they're trying to do that, and it's not quite working out. They need to calibrate a little bit. Again, it's not that it's not working out or that I caused that tire necessarily to blow, but when we're dealing with energy and balance, it's easy to disrupt a balance. As a raft guide, the river is going to humble you, and it will every single time. I don't care who you are. You're going to be humbled by nature. Nature is powerful, and she doesn't care. The river doesn't care. It's flowing the way it's flowing. And so as a raft guide, like, we know it's like, shh, the river can hear it. She can hear you. Like, don't get cocky, don't get arrogant. Don't disrupt the balance, because that is going to come out in the wash. Like, it's going to have consequences. Egos get destroyed out there because of it. And I think there are some little nuances that if we could maybe notice and kind of see, then they may not be sticking points as much for people. Now it's one thing to say, well, don't get too excited. And then it's another thing to try to be able to control your emotions and not get too excited. It's like when you're in a lucid dream and you're like, oh, holy shit, I'm in a lucid dream. And then you're awake. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got too excited. But if you could calm down and be like, all right, I'm in a lucid. I'm in a lucid. Okay. I'm just gonna walk through this wall, I'm just gonna fly. But as soon as that, you kind of get swept up in whatever that jumper is, the pendulum, the excitement, whatever that is, it's like you kind of lose touch with whatever it is that you're kind of actively working on, or whatever you're trying to make the outcome kind of suit.
Well, and to bring it back around to the river too, she is listening, right? So you can say she doesn't care, or you can believe she does, and you're gonna have a great day. And that wave that flipped you last time, you're just gonna push into it and sail right over, right? Because you're setting up you're setting yourself up for the success from the jump. So you get to the river and say hello and I love you and this is going to be a great day. It probably will be. If you show up and say, this bitch is indifferent and could kill me at any moment, that's the day you're going to have, right? So it's not just in nature, it's the flat tire. You know, have you shown love to the car? Have you maintained it? Have you washed it recently? All of those things will reverberate out into the universe, into the mirror, and come back. So that's the way I see it, and have played with it anyway. I've been flipped on the river for sure, like, you know, but it was sort of a I thought I knew what I was doing too much kind of thing. It was a humbling experience because I needed to be humbled.
Yeah, well, natural law does not shift. And when I
Right.
say it doesn't care, that's what I mean. It's just there is an indifference to these principles, right? Like we could play the principles or we could be played by the principles. That's up to us. And so like that mentality and understanding that is 100% true. I totally
Seeing it from an animist perspective, especially when out in nature, seems to facilitate a bigger space than you're used to as well, and you can then, you know, see and manipulate the energy a little better. And that's in my experience. You know, I'm not preaching or teaching, but that mirror effect, you know, starts from before you wake up, or, you know, before your feet hit the ground. So
It's natural. It's if I could jump in, Lowen, you brought up natural law. That's
yeah.
the word natural, like that. It has to be natural. Like when you're trying to this is what I get from reading Neville, right? He says that whatever your aim is, it has to be natural feeling to you. So that's the amount of time in which it takes to manifest something is the amount of time in which you have to feel comfortable being in that state that you're imagining. So if you're, you know, not used to thinking in a certain way, like a healthy way, if somebody's sick all the time and that's what their thoughts are stuck on, they're not ever imagining being healthy or not in that state. So they're just perpetuating the sickness. So it has to, however long it takes for you to feel natural with your desired outcome, I think is way to kind of deal with passions, because we can get excited or really upset, but it's the middle path that we need to look for. And I think that that the interval of time is different for everybody, because it goes back to how much confidence you have in yourself, like how do you view yourself, right? And I think that's a big part in the efficiency of manifesting, and you know how long it takes, right? Is the confidence and the naturalness part.
I agree. 100%. The Neville stuff is interesting. I never really got into him as much, but a lot of the ideas are, I think, similar from him to transurfing. Is that true?
Oh yeah. There's so much crossover between Vadum and Napoleon Hill and Neville Goddard. Like they're all talking about the same thing. So I appreciate Neville because I don't know, just he's got a lot of writings, and like his book, like the book is all 10 of them, all 10 of the books about that big. So it's about the size of Reality Transurfing. I want to say Reality Transurfing is actually bigger than this book. I know it is actually. There's only 500 some pages. I think Transurfing is like 900 or something like that. But
yeah, I've listened to The Feeling's a Secret, which I thought was brilliant. To me, that makes the most sense because it is this thing that you have, like you said, naturally accustomed to. You've acclimatized to it, right? Like you're like, this is normal for me, right? It's normal for Bill Murray to walk out to his mailbox and receive a script that he's been written into, right? Like it feels normal to him. That's his emotional take, right? Like that's the level where he's at. So it makes sense to him, right? Like that's natural. And so that's what we're trying to do too with our manifestations. I just, as you said, the middle path, right? Like as an entrepreneur and somebody who's done a lot of weird shit, you know, your emotions kind of go like up and down and up and down a lot. But what you're talking about, like the middle path, right? Like it's kind of what I'm trying to, I think, illustrate a little bit, right? It's the nuance of getting excited about something and then it being, it also depends on what you're manifesting or what your goal is, right? Like different goals have different strategies. I'll say that too, right? Like a long-term thing that's going to take you a while. You have to play that a little bit differently than something that, is an instantaneous kind of shift. I mean, not to say that you can't have an instantaneous shift to like some crazy, outrageous outcome, but it just kind of depends on what it is that you're attempting to accomplish.
It's kind of like being read into like a need to know program. It's like whatever your goal is, or if you're seeking out like some piece of information, is your focus of attention, how strong is it, and how strong is your need to know, like of the situation or whatever you're trying to find out. And that the focused attention part, like it seems to be some kind of like catalyst to the universe was willing to give up its secrets or whatever, if you want to put it like that.
No, I like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, even with Napoleon Hill, where his like other self just kicks in that Outwitting the Devil book, because he's like living in his sister's basement in West Virginia for like 2 years, thinking that he's going to get killed. And then he walks out and looks at the stars and like kind of gets a message, and then goes on this seemingly crazy kind of wild goose chase to try to figure out how to publish his manuscript. That is some fascinating stuff right there. Like to have the confidence to follow your intuition, I think, is most important. And then to navigate those challenges as they come about. But I guess I'm making the case that I think Outlook 2 overall can keep the road a little bit less turbulent, maybe, if we're aware. I don't know. Maybe I'm just full of gobbledygook.
No. And it makes sense to me. I mean, I love this idea of like quantum entanglement or following paths that have been done before. You can look at like new crystals when they're created and they synthesize at a certain speed. And the longer that you synthesize a brand new crystal, it starts speeding up and becoming a faster synthesis until at one point it's just at a baseline speed. And if you create it anywhere else at any other time, it's going to be at that caught up baseline speed. And I love to think that the universe is evolving. Everything is evolving towards getting better. And the universe does what works the most efficient way possible. And that even goes into magic and rituals and the way that you think and the things that you do. And it might not make sense to you, but people have been doing it for thousands of years, or in a universe, where, you discover the same thing across the continent as somebody else. We can't determine who discovered flight or so many other things. How far does that extend? Is it possible that the entire universe, all thought, all things that you are interconnecting with are kind of along this line? So yeah, I love the idea of it's, not necessarily finding the middle road, but, history repeats itself. Everything comes along in a new flavor. There's nothing new. The universe has been here for a very long time. And yeah, when you can kind of tap into that ancient knowledge, it's amazing. I don't know, just how it can manifest new things in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing what it'll lead you to. You never know where the next thing is going to be. It's like this breadcrumb trail, and you just keep following it, and I just noticed some of these little nuances. And I'm not saying, something went wrong, or I'm not trying to be negative. I don't mean it like that. I just think there's ways to smoothen out the balance. And that's what he's being taught in this book, which is very much a magic book. It's mostly about dreaming and dream magic and Castaneda's stuff. He pulls him into a lucid dream and talks to him every time he's got to like have an aside, right? Like if it were a movie, it would be like that. Like just gets pulled into a lucid dream. But he's kind of being like, look, dude, you got this lady who you guys like each other. You got that whole thing going on. Your business is going good. Like all this stuff is going. He's like, you need to change your situation. You need to calibrate your situation. you know, in advance. And I thought that was interesting because it's something that I've thought about before, though I didn't know. I don't know. There's these interesting like suspicions sometimes that I get where I'll think about something and I'm not. It seems like that way. Even breath was this way for me when I first started to, I guess, wake up or whatever. I was in Montana working and I was like, should I pay attention to my breath? Why do I feel like I should do that? It was like intuitive, you know, but like there's some bumpers too, I think, when it comes to magic, and it's getting more advanced, going back to gratitude, you know, insulating and cultivating the garden of our mind, as you guys are talking about how important it is to have that outlook and that frame. I've just seen so many different experiences of people, and I see so many people who they want to do something really quickly, maybe without a whole lot of effort. They want the magic pill. So, you know, I mean, I think that you can 100% shortcut yourself into being able to do something, whether it's a skill or have something, whatever that is. But you know, we got to do the work too. And I want to talk about and understand that manifestation process and all the nuances that come along with it. Cause it's probably different for each of us and at different times, depending on the state where we're at, what our life is, how much we've grown, how much we've been able to observe these little things that maybe you didn't see it. Right. So I don't know. I'm digging into that at this point. I think it's interesting. Not to come from some place where it's like trying to avoid something or run away or whatever, but to move in a way, because the universe hears you, but to move in a way where, you know, you can feel secure and feel like, you know, you're not stirring a bunch of shit up, I guess.
You know, that's a lot. Very similar to a line I've been trying to work on for a while. Not trying to, I have been working on it for a while. In that I'm not trying to manifest anything anymore, because I am manifesting always. Right. So knowing that like everything is a manifestation of what you're putting out. Right. So taking that first step out of bed every morning with gratitude, you know, does set that stage, so to speak, for the grand, you know, play that we're all participating in. So if you can pick your character, you know, you can pick the set where you are, and even to the point where, you know, Derek talked on the other show a little bit about seeing that rainstorm coming up. I don't know the words to this. I've had some experiences where it's I spent a lot of time outside camping for a living for a while, and if you're dreading that storm coming in, and my phone's about to die, this is fun. If you're dreading that storm coming in, then those hailstones are probably going to get bigger. Right. It's kind of like you were saying before, being too excited, you can swing that pendulum the other way. And all of a sudden that storm's going to get a lot worse. But if you're just accepting that, oh, we're going to get wet, you know, then it's not so bad. And the sun comes back out, you warm right back up. Right. So.
Yeah, dude, it's like backpacking and it starts raining and you got everything covered up and all this stuff, but then you just get wetter and wetter, and there's like finally just this dime size spot on your back that's still dry. You're fighting your whole life to just keep that dry. And finally it gets soaking wet, and then you're like, And then you would just start
And
cruising through
then
the
you
rain.
slip in the mud, right? Then
Right.
that just sets the whole thing up. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well, hey, this has been rad. If my phone dies unexpectedly, which I assume it will at any moment, thanks for letting me tag along on this one too. This has been getting to know all you guys has been really amazing, and I'm looking forward to the projects coming forward. So
Awesome, dude. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out and sharing with us. I know it's going to be really cool. It's already super cool. So I'm stoked as well. So I guess it'll be kind of expectedly if your phone dies now, since you are the 1%, Ben, at this point.
yeah, well yeah. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna jump out, but thanks again, and I'm gonna get plugged up and then watch the rest of it. So we'll see you later.
I'm not going to keep you guys super late. I'm tired myself. It's been a great day. The first day of spring, been a great day. I hope everybody out there has had a good day today. It really did kind of feel like energetically for me. Yeah, just a true first spring day of good stuff happening. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is it's the vernal equinox, I think is what the almanac calls it. But if you look, I have an almanac right next to me. So if you pull up the month of March and you look at the 17th day, and speaking in terms of equinox, equal day and equal night, you'll say that there's 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night on the 17th, and this happens every year, right? So at least in my neck of the woods, like my latitude area of the world, right? So the equinox, I guess there's two of them, because there's one on the 17th when you have actual equal day and equal night, right? In the church, or the St. Patrick's Day, there's a feast day on that day, which I find very interesting. But speaking of feast days, something new I learned on St. Patrick's Day, there's also another feast day of another saint called Gertrude of something, starts with an N. But anyway, she's the patron saint of cats, which I thought was interesting because Patrick is supposed to drive out snakes, and then you've got this other feast day with cats, which I own 3 cats, so maybe that's why I find it interesting.
Oh man, yeah. Talk about master manifestors, hunting cats, man. They're crazy. They're wild. Yeah, the whole St. Patrick's Day thing is interesting too. There's a lot of other insight into that whole movement there, because I think like there were no snakes. There's no snakes in Britain, right? Like they don't have snakes there, from my understanding, especially the smaller islands. There's only a few places in the world where they don't actually have snakes. So I think the speculation is that that's a symbol for the indigenous people from that region. So that's when they finally got rid of the pagans and the druids off of that island. And so I suppose that's why they celebrate it, or what that may be code for. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but I think there's some merit to that as a theory.
Definitely hidden in there, I would say, especially just because the churches is involved, right? Like it's shady business over there.
No doubt. No doubt about it.
I don't want to like rag too much on that institution, but I do feel like I have some permission to, since I spent some time in seminary, so I feel I can talk about it like that. So anyway, in case you were wondering, I'm against it, but.
No, I'm with you. I see a lot of value in, especially the teachings, right? Like the teachings, that's where it's at. 100%. I'm on board with that. All the red letters in there are great. I'm all for keeping that, trying my best to do those types of things. And I think what that may also symbolize, at least to me, is the end of a lot of ritual and animal sacrifice, a lot of blood, a lot of, cannibalism and stuff like that. So I'm a fan of like not that. That's cool. Big fan of that. But yeah, I don't know. Digging into history, things just get weirder and weirder, as I can tell, the more I look back into that stuff. And then I have to recontextualize where we're at. And it's pretty trippy.
Yeah. Speaking of other astronomical things, if I said that right, I believe there's a conjunction between the moon and Neptune today, and the moon and Mercury. So we got some Neptune energy and Mercury energy, which is perfect for what we just did on Chrononaut Chronicles. I mean, talking about change, that's mercurial, and then Neptune has to deal with revolution. Oh, I have a reference book here, but just reordering of creative endeavors, I guess, which is exactly what we're doing. So it tied in perfectly. I didn't talk about it on the show, but yeah. I was gonna ask Derek, like, since you have can perceive energies differently, when there are conjunctions like this and planets align, is there like a difference between like a what you can perceive off of like Neptune versus Mercury? Like, is that noticeable? Is it or is it something that you kind of have to slow down and acknowledge, like what day of the week it is, type thing? Or I don't know.
I would again, I kind of have to jump to analogies or descriptions to talk about this. So we're all, but in this case, we'll talk about me. So yeah, I'm a surfer on a set of waves, and I'm an ex-California surfer. So, and I'm only saying that because sets of waves, multiples, are called sets, of course, and they vary. So it depends on how aware the perceiver is. And for example, today, going around my day, I don't have time in my day to look up, and it's all legit. The energy tied to the planets of just from, not that you need me to say that, but from my perspective, it absolutely is, because I don't pay attention to that, but I can sure feel it until things are off. But for me to get insight, I need to slow down, get in my head, look at it, focus it. You can call it, there's lots of ways of describing that. And then, yeah, I do get, like right now, even just doing it, even saying that, just rang my right ear, which is part of my etheric sign language, I kind of like jokingly call it. So it's my high deaf ear. If it's normal woo-woo psychic stuff that I'm doing a reading or a session, I'm not minimizing that, but just the typical stuff. And this year hasn't stopped since I said that. It's left ear stuff. And it's very, as you work in these states more and more on a daily basis, it's something that really hones itself like anything else. Then you can ride a bike without holding on to the handlebars, sort of deal. So all of a sudden my right ear, and again, hasn't stopped. So what I'm saying is, we were talking about these conjunctions. That's high def stuff now in my internal lingo that gives me a language to communicate this stuff with, because I don't want to be a channel, have some entity jump into me and start, being a puppet. I don't have any patience for that stuff. So they have to work with the understandings I have. So more frequencies are more easily accessible now. I know that's a vague term. I really hate saying the word frequencies and energy, but again, our language is about that big to work with. And I'm pointing over here because that's where I get this slide. So yes, I can see the planets in conjunction. I just have to have the thought, and then I get a visual that pops up over here. Depending on where my imagination goes, that changes, and I get insight. So yeah, you can do a lot more in these times, and things will move fast. They'll be heightened. There'll even be physical manifestations on these things. I'm not going to go into any one of these things because you didn't ask that specifically. But yeah, I can definitely, and we all, by the way, I'll pick up on it. But it's like, again, like drinking wine. Are you just knocking down some Mad Dog, or are you being a wine taster and picking up on the subtle differences in a wine? It depends the state you're in at the moment during these conjunctions and retrogrades and all that. But they're big time legit affecting us. Again, we're a surfer on a surfboard, sure, but the waves kind of matter. I mean, so the more you pick up on stuff around you, let's call it etheric energy waves or frequencies. Well, yeah, if you know that there's more coming, a faster wave, let's say, well, then to kind of hunker down and, get ready for that. So, yeah, I don't know, I hope that made some sense.
Yeah, I just think it tied in perfectly to how we launched Chrononaut Chronicles, and even just doing this live stream with Owen on Blue Collar Mystics, just Neptune, the archetype, right, according to Roy Gillette from The Secret Language of Astrology book. It's one of my favorite books here. But just real quickly, it says that Neptune can also inspire us to produce art, music, literature, and other forms of creativity, which is exactly what we're doing here, right? So,
is there blue associated with that? Okay, I should also say something. I have no background in anything. I have joined no clubs on any level. I have no understanding. I don't read everybody's books, and I'm not dissing any of that stuff, but I don't. So I don't have a bunch of background, and that's a good state to be in, actually. So right now, when you're talking about it, I'm getting some big, hueish, not the purple, but the bluish flashes coming in over here. Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on. So again, from somebody who is clueless, like I am, on a lot of these things, because again, I haven't read this book, that one, and the other, so I don't know what's being said out there. I just get to have that, that meal put in front of me and say, hey, see what it's like. But that is happening. So again, I don't know if there's anything, and there's always more to the story too, as you see me grabbing my ears. But I'll just stop right there. But I'll just say it's easier to tune what I call high def frequencies now, which would be communicating with your loosely called higher self and your guides and things like that. The communication is way easier. I'll just tell you, for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely blue because Neptune, aka Poseidon, so like ruler of the sea.
That's blue.
I didn't even know Poseidon was that. I don't know any of this. I don't know. And I don't know anything about any of that. Okay, well, there was somebody, and this is one of those psychic moments where I'm like, I don't know, do I mention this during the podcast? There was somebody literally riding a wave over here, is why I went with the whole wave analogy, just so you know. And the surf, because I'm an old California surfer boy too. I ring them both my ears. But that's where I grabbed that from, not with no other backstory to it. And that's what, for those on video, you see, it's like really ringing my ears in here when I perceive this stuff that I'm pointing out off screen. I can't explain it. It's odd, but it is a thing. I know I haven't shut up yet, but a tie-in is when many of us hear those squeaks and squeals, the tinnitus-like symptoms your doctors like to tell you, you're not going deaf. There's a percentage of that. It's a frequency. Often it's your guides or others around you, your biofields, and there's a squelch, a squeal. Again, we call it tinnitus down here. So then don't go into panic mode that you're losing your hearing, because that's not a thing. I grew up thinking, well, once you hear that tone and it does that, you lost it forever. BS, not a thing. Relax, open up in your imagination, and you may get a message or something. That's an easy way to do it. So again, it's just saying that somebody else is around you. It's not necessarily that tone or pitch is the message. It's kind of like a flick of the ear. Pay attention and see what else comes in.
Right. So you saw somebody riding the waves, what are they using? Were they body surfing? Do you see a surfboard? What is it? Because
it's a piece of wood or something. So it's not a surfboard. It's a piece of wood or something.
What a badass.
Yeah. It's not. And I never know on this stuff if it's like some crazy visualization that I'm giving myself to tell me to talk about that. There are so many ways, and remember, unknown, so I go at it openly, not vested, and I also don't give a damn what I look like. And that's what makes it come through easier too, just by doing that. So, but yeah, you said Poseidon. I don't know.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because when you were saying about seeing somebody riding a wave, I looked down at the book and it mentioned him riding white topped waves on a seahorse. So I was going to see if it was a seahorse.
No, it wasn't that clear of a visual or anything. He's saying there's stars or something too, because I can communicate. We can all do it too. I can communicate, and he's saying don't forget about the stars. Mention the stars. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So stars. And that comes in that during readings too. And that's usually when I'm talking to somebody in a session. They'll go, well, that was that special thing that grandma or grandpa or whatever the deal was. And again, I'm not minimizing this. I just open up and it comes in. I'm not being vested. But anyway.
Yeah, you have a nonchalance that's really, this is going to sound paradoxical, but really like a really warm. Like it's like, I don't know how to explain that. Like I said, it does seem like a little bit of a oxymoron, but it is. It's like you just have this like, you can specifically are reporting, and it's not it's not fanatical in any way. It's calm, and it's delivered well. You have a good bedside manner, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I appreciate that. I never know how it come across. And again, I try not to get too vested in that. So hopefully it comes out the right way for the right person at the right time. And I know that's how it usually goes. Actually, if I have I know I haven't shut up for a while.
Yeah,
Just a quick second,
go ahead.
but it ties into what you guys were talking about earlier with going to the flow. And Adam mentioned something. And I wrote a quick note because then Bill mentioned cats. And when something comes to my attention 3 times, and it doesn't have to be 3 times, but it's really a hammer in the head moment when it's 3 times. And it's to mention, well, of course, I don't know if people know this, but pigs, so captive pigs, if they're let loose in one generation, those little suckers are feral. They're wild boars again. I don't know and same with cats, feral. One generation, they're not, mama cat that got released didn't teach the babies to do that. They come out going with the natural energies. That's how it goes for the environment and the state they're in. And that's why instantaneously on the next generation, the boars just start having this sharp teeth again, this tusks. And lots of other features, by the way, the hair in the boar's case. The cats will respond differently. And of course, what I was saying was also the birds, the bugs, and the fish, of course, they flock, swarm, and school in groups. And by the way, when you see those big birds in the sky that we've probably seen at least on TV, if not in person, with 1,000, 10,000 flying in unison like a big cloud swarm, they're not bouncing into each other. They're not yelling at each other, telling them what to do. All those birds and or fish and or bugs are going with the flow in our easy human terms. It's a natural flow of energy that goes through this reality, and that ties you back to the river you guys were talking about. Yeah, don't fight it. There's a natural state of being, not something you do. It's more get out of your own way, hold a state, and that's where you go. And that's what those birds, bugs, and fish are doing. They're just going kind of loose, not focusing. It's not a hyper-focus thing. You guys have met me for a while now. I don't slow down. I go 100 miles an hour usually. I don't have that little quiet spot in my head that gets me to hyper-focus and meditation all day. Not a thing with me, and you don't need it. Now, if that's your thing, great. Not dissing it, but I'll tell you, you don't have to have that either. You can instantly go with the flow, jump into the flock of birds, and just go with it. And it's a knowing is what it is. So just wanted to add that in there.
I love it. It's great. Yeah. I mean, we got to find what works for you. Everybody's different. You know, some of us I needed to meditate for years. You know, it helped me a lot. I don't do it nearly as consistently as I used to, but I needed it. You know, I had that weird thing where I would just like jiggle my leg all the time, you know, just all this anxious energy, just like didn't know how to get it out and things like that. And meditation helped me notice little things like that, little weird.
Oh, I'm not dissing meditation. There's times I love it.
Yeah.
In times and places, it's like Nautilus equipment in a gym. Sometimes you want that machine. Sometimes you don't need it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely, nobody's dissing anything. I just love that you're outside of the box. It's a unorthodox approach, which is, but it reflects the truth of all the esoteric knowledge that it's all inside of you anyway. So
it is. I've been to what's kind of put out there is called, and they're straight up called secret schools, mystery schools, and there's people that are dubbed gurus and masters out there to today. I've been there, done that, I'll just say. And I've been to a bunch of colleges too. And I'm only saying that stuff is because then I came out pretty much turning around, flipping them all off, saying you're full of a bunch of crap. You're serving Kool-Aid. You don't need this stuff. And I'm touching a whole lot of aspects there, but that was a thing. It's just a knowing, because then I realized, well, wait a minute. I did the whole psychic thing. I guessed and I researched a mathematician saying what are the odds of guessing what song was going to be on the radio or this, that, or the other. Played all those head games, did the impossible odds, go, oh, that's a thing. I got over it. And then guess what happened? It started happening more and more. And it wasn't a magic yoga pose I learned. It wasn't because I was a vegetarian by 5 years that time. Nope. And I'm not dissing those things. Love yoga. I am a vegetarian, but that's not what did it. I like to make fun of a lot of things. You get it, Owen.
Oh, yeah.
It's a state of knowing or understanding, and then you access the abilities you already have. And that's just how I did it. Again, maybe it's a slow way. I don't know anything because I have no training. I don't have the psychic manual. Yeah. Nobody issued me the psychic manual when I came out.
Right. You don't have the
I just had to
certification.
figure it out. Yeah. That's one way to do it.
I love that. No, I think that's beautiful. No, and it's very understanding too. It comes off just super sincere. So I appreciate it. I think it's a great approach. I really do. It's refreshing because I mean, so many people out there, like you said, they're doing the guru thing, and it's tired. You know, we're over it. You know, it's another dick joke at this point. But I mean, we have to make fun of ourselves as well. You know, like, and the ability to do that, I think, is so helpful. Just to see that as humor and minimize, you know, some things, you know, minimize yourself, your ego a little bit, just by seeing the humor in something. But yeah, I love it. That's great.
That goes hand in hand with not taking things too personally. Like Ben mentioned the 4 agreements. If it was this show or last show, everything's running together now. But yeah, being able to laugh at yourself, like that's something that I don't know if that came up a whole lot in 13 questions, but I think that it's useful, right? Don't take yourself too seriously.
It's been a lesson in my life, whether I asked for it or not. You know, I would say that God or the universe or what have you is definitely a comedian, 100%. And I think being able to see that it's so helpful. It's humbling, and it brings us all to the same level. You know, I think that's a good thing. Obviously, you don't want to beat yourself up, you know, and self-deprecate yourself to death either. There's a balance there too, but if you can see yourself as, that's kind of a twist actually when you start learning comedy, is you first start trying to be funny, you start making fun of other people, and then you can kind of make yourself the joke a little bit. Once you figure that out, that it's like it's more fun for everybody that way, right? Like, and you don't have to just rag on yourself to make yourself the part of the joke, but you can talk about, you know, how you thought it was like this, and then you walked into the room and it was a completely different way than you thought or something. And so you're illustrating that sort of awkward interaction or situation through your own eyes and making yourself kind of the thing that doesn't fit instead of somebody else. So it's a good thing. And I think it also keeps you calm. And if you can laugh about something, then it doesn't have power over you. You know, back to that idea of the pendulum or the energetic kind of connection. You know, it wants your energy. It wants you to focus on it. If it's negative or whatever it is, it's like, it's just trying to get your energy. But if you can see that, and you can see the humor in it, then you kind of resolve that tension and that sort of hold that whatever it is has on you, right? Like whatever that, if it's a trauma, whatever, you know, you can kind of lessen it by seeing it through the eyes of humor, a little bit of irony, parody, satire, what have you, whatever filter.
Would that then help you, like in turn, help you with your confidence, because you're in a roundabout way? Because I don't know, you're being, I don't want to say self-deprecating, maybe isn't the right word, but like being able to a different perspective. There we go. Like, would that kind of take the pressure off and relieve, you know, give yourself like a confidence boost? Because I mean, as a stand-up comedian, you got to have. I mean, you're on stage in front of people. Like we're doing podcasts at my home, right? It's completely different. So was that helpful in building confidence? Because I don't know, my doubting Thomas aspect of my personality is very strong. So like even when I'm able to do something correctly the first time, or you know, once, like I'll be like, oh well, that was, you know, I have trouble perpetuating that, like keeping the confidence. So like, in your experience, like was that true? I mean,
honestly, it kind of goes up and down sometimes, you know. Sometimes I'll be very confident and just be kind of on a roll, and then other times, you know, the confidence level is just not what it was, and that could be a myriad of different things. It's kind of funny because like once you've established a certain standard, people expect that from you. You know, so you've got this playroom down here where it's like, if nobody has any expectations, then you can just do whatever. Nobody cares, right? Like there's no standard. You don't have to hold yourself up to something. But once you're like, you can do 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. Now that's expected of you to be able to hold it for that long and do it. And so sometimes it can kind of wait, but I mean, ultimately, right, like you're learning your learning curve. So it's ultimately overall going up. But I've noticed that in this particular endeavor where the confidence kind of goes a little bit up and down. And, if you jump into it and you are good, then it kind of gives you this sense of false security, and that bubble can pop, and that can be pretty devastating potentially, depending on what happens. So I think it's one of those things where, we have to grow. And like we were talking about before, where we really feel comfortable in that we belong here, like we just know it's second nature and it feels comfortable and we're calm about it. And for everybody, I think that is a different process. It's alchemy. It's burning out all the impurities and all the stuff that, is in there that gets in the way of whatever it is that you're trying to put forward, whatever that kind of calls for. And I can see a lot of different art forms, whether it's, pottery or skateboarding, or fill in the blank. I think it could be really anything, but that's part of that process of mastery. I think that's what takes a while. People want to shortcut that. I want to shortcut that. That would be awesome. It would be great if I could be good in 2 years instead of 10 or whatever. I think the best way to shortcut development as far as like building a skill is the ultimate hack is to be able to take criticism, because most people can't. And if you can take criticism and then you can continue to just do the manifestation stuff, see the visualization, and then put the time in and continue to work that muscle. If you can actually take criticism, then you'll do a lot better than people who won't. That's a huge amount of leverage that I can see. I see people in Toastmasters that speak like really well. And it's because they've put the time in to speak really well. And they've taken the feedback of people telling them, oh, this is your crutch word. You say and or like or whatever. And then they've started to take that feedback. Whereas a lot of people would just do the thing. If they got feedback, they'd be like, their ego gets hurt because they have to be the best automatically on the first try, because that's how it works. And then, they don't develop because they're not willing to face criticism. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. When it comes to acting and creative stuff, that seems to be the biggest difference maker between the people who are excellent at what they do and people who are mediocre.
Yeah, it goes back to what Bill had spoken about earlier, spells, spelling. There is ways that you can hinder yourself with the vibrations and the words and the way that you do things. If you really if I think about like the Harry Potter world of creating an incantation, waving your wand and putting it into place, that is what we are all doing, because everything we've created is a manifestation of somebody's thought in the way that they move their body. And through that, we've created all these amazing things. And it's just day to day. It's that, like we said, getting your first foot out of bed, having that gratitude. Well, yeah, that's part of the casting the spell. That's part of the magic. That's part of the waving the wand. And yeah, it truly is magical. It's all around us. We're all doing it every day.
It is. And we have to be willing to grow. And sometimes to be able to grow, you got to make some mistakes. You got to get out there and goof a little. And
the forest will die if it doesn't burn down occasionally.
Yeah.
You got to have an accident. You got to learn, and you got to learn how to then, dig those fire pits. And yeah, eventually you come out much stronger and more diverse.
And resilient and really knowing. It's not confidence. So like, for instance, in Vadim's book, he says confidence, throw that aside. He's like, don't be confident. He's like, don't do that at all. Coordinate. That's what he says to do. Coordinate intention. Don't be confident. Just coordinate intention. Set things up. Set that proper recipe. Set the situation up where it's ripe to be. You're ripe to be successful. You're in that position. You're in that place. Now you don't need confidence. Everything's set in motion as in the best possible way, which is smart. And that's And he's talking also a lot about coordinating heart and mind as well. You know, it's like those two things are in unison. So that's that flow state. It's back to that, you know, as well. So that has a lot to do with it too. Like if I'm in a flow state, then of course I'm going to have a good set. You know what I mean? I might just do crowd work for 20 minutes. You know, I don't even have to do any material. Maybe, you know, it might be that electric in the house where people are they're ready for it. They can't wait. They're so excited. And, you know, some crazy thing happens and then you just like look over at it and make an observation and the whole place just goes off like a bomb, you know, like.
Yeah, it's that moment when you know that if you lay the joke out that the punchline is going to be there. You can sense that there's something in the air that's going to get completed. Don't know how you're going to get there, but you throw that line out and you can sense that there's something in the water.
Oh, it's so scary though. It's so scary because you're like, I know it's going to be there, right? Like, you know, it is, you know, the tension will resolve. That's nature, back to nature, natural law. It's going to resolve, right? But when you throw that first thing out there, you're like, oh God, is this thing gonna come to completion, right? Like, is it? So that like pregnant pause, they call it, right? Like, which is pretty interesting name for it. But that's that awkward tension. And then the other thing happens and it unfolds and then it resolves. And I think if you have confidence and you coordinate into that principle, then you can be very successful doing that. But you got to get comfortable with it. You have to, you know, you have to know, like it's beyond confidence. It's like, no, I'm just coordinating it. I know what it is.
Yeah. It's the confidence without ego.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
That's interesting. When you describe it that way, because when I do classes or group sessions here at Mystical Wares with a bunch of people doing the whole intuitive thing, you just go with it, exactly the flow, and then it comes in naturally. You know, you can say fake it till you make it. Well, there's something to that. Yeah, coming at it from the back end, knowing that you're already going to be successful. Either the stand-up's going to be great and you know you're a hit, or I'm going to be accurate in what I'm saying. Whatever the deal is, I actually come at it from the back end knowing, oh, it's already happened. It's going to be a thing.
I love that.
And then, yeah, kind of meets in the middle.
I love that. So I think that can help too, you know, back to that, like, sort of things getting in the way, turbulence kind of thing. If you know it's just going to be this way and you're completely certain about it, then none of those bumps matter. You know, it's like I got to my class. I was able to do, they even actually waited for me. You know, I had to take an Uber and all this. I was just happy to be there. You know, I went back, I got my tire. It was no big deal. So everything went on, you know, just a little bump in the road, so to speak, right? Like not a negative thing. In that sense, just staying focused on the end goal, that course. And then back to, you know, again, I'm not as familiar with Neville, but from what I understand, like really feeling and deserving and feeling that like that, because that in positive, a good type of entitlement, like this is mine, like it's okay, that's mine, it belongs to me, kind of thing. That's what, if you can cultivate that and hold on to that. You know, sometimes we joke around too. If I have a big job to do or whatever, I'll just be like, just pretend like it's already done, everybody. And then we just like do a little, you know, little dance. We pretend like it's already done. And then that eases some of the tension, right? Then we can just go in and get the job done. You know, some of that stress is out of the way of, oh, we got to complete this task. It's like, well, what if it's already done?
Then
what would you do?
Halfway. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think mentally it can be very helpful. And just that certainty, like I know this is going to happen, and pick something that you know is going to happen, right? Like why be choosing that thing that is authentically for you, and then it doesn't really matter. You're going to get it. It will come.
I have an example. That's it. That I like how you put it that way, because you may not know, but I'm a retired commercial deep sea diver as well as other things. So, and I bring that up because I have some diver training and swimming training. So people often in deep water drown. That's a thing. But I'll tell you, they don't need to, because you don't need to know how to swim to stay afloat, and you don't even need to know how to dog paddle. All you have to do is relax, breathe in deep. Your lungs will fill. You'll become what's called buoyant. You don't need to know how to swim. All you need to know is that you're going to be fine. Somebody's going to come rescue you in this, description I'm giving, and chill the heck out. And then you're not going to sit there and get tired and dog paddle for having the. That's not a thing. It's really not. You just breathe in deep. So again, when you look at reality as that, then you'll meet that state of being. I don't care if you want to be psychic level 5, whatever that is, if it was a thing and it's not, well, then that's what you'll match when you start realizing it. And or in the swimming description, you'll become buoyant because you chilled the hell out, stop panicking, lungs filled up, and oh, that's how it goes. I don't need to know how to swim. You don't.
Mhm.
You don't need to know how to be a psychic. I've talked to some of them. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? That's like one chef telling you, you got to make pizza this way. No, you don't. There's a lot of ways to make pizza. And mine's maybe different than yours.
Got that Chicago style deep dish.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what I love about Gordon White. He kind of talks about a flavor of that with doing sigils and flocks, that you'll put out things that you know are going to manifest, in that within a group of things that you sigil out and manifest, you're also going to put things that are way more important. So I'm going to have a pizza delivered tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Well, put a sigil out there, do it, and put a whole bunch of those out there. And yeah, there's just this magnetism of thought. So if you can get yourself in the confidence of doing this and manifesting this and then letting it go, yeah, it's something that we can certainly all do. But when you fear it, the fear manifests.
I love that. That's smart. It's like little training wheels, like magic.
Yeah, you do them
training
all at once, and then your other thing, the big thing that you're trying to manifest is within that grouping of things that is going to work. And so it's like anything else, if you're successful in doing and working and it's working, things just kind of align. That I don't know. I always think of it in the quantum entanglement way of like, me traveling down the same road every single day is ingraining me in a physical reality in a way that the same way that if you look at, ships traveling across the ocean, well, yeah, lightning strikes are more heavily in the boat lanes. We don't know why, but there's a reason.
Yeah, it's good. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate very much your time. We've been at this for a while between the two shows, and I want to first and foremost encourage everybody to go check out Chrononaut Chronicles. If I don't already have a link, I should have a link already in the description. I'm going to put a link in the live chats, both of them, as well, as we kind of go round robin. You guys let everybody know what you're working on and how to find you, and and we will wrap this thing in a little bit of a bow. We'll land this plane, so to speak, and we'll reconvene again soon, which is fantastic and exciting. Bill, let's start with you.
Yeah, check out KrononautChronicles.com. That is a website that Derek put together. So thank you, Derek, for doing all the legwork. The show is sponsored by Mystical Wares. So you can get to Derek's website through KrononautChronicles.com if you want to. Also, 13questionspodcast.com. That show is still up and going. I have a small bio over there. And I come in on episode 38. So I'm not there for the whole project. So that's where you can find me currently. And then Instagram is Chrononaut Chronicles. That's the only social media I'm doing for Chrononaut Chronicles at the moment. So definitely go and give that a follow.
Awesome. Mr. Derek Condit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and it's been a blast as always. We had fun on all the podcasts. Yeah, I love how we go all over the place. Yeah, and I can be found on mysticalwares.com, as Bill mentioned. And there's lots of different things I'm into on there. I'll leave it at that. But I just love being on the podcast and sharing them and have such a great time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I always have a great time. I love having you on. And I'm excited that we're going to be collaborating a little bit more. I look forward to learning a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you. Adam, tell folks where they can find you, and
to repeat exactly what Bill said, since we're on 13 Questions together and Chrononauts. You can also find me on Cat in the Box, a podcast that is coming back very, very soon. It's a podcast on remote viewing. So, completely in the realms of this with my my co-host over there, Justin. And if anybody's out there looking to hire somebody anywhere in the podcasting space, I am on the market and available. But yeah, head on over to catinthebox.space, 13 questions, or Chrononauts to hear more about me.
Is that a Schrodinger reference?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, it's like a triple or quadruple entendre of, like a cat box, litter box, cat in the box. Yeah, it's I don't know where
Talk
that one
about
came
quantum
from, but
entanglement. Yeesh. Like this guy. Oh, no,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome.
No, listen, it's a fun show, not to oversell it, but every episode title is the target, and we do targets so you can remote view along the way. And all that stuff is also posted up on the website, so you don't need to source out your targets. You can sit with a couple friends, enjoy some coffee, and see the future.
That is cool. I love it. What a cool concept. Yeah, definitely. I'll be looking for that. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll put that link out there as well. And yeah, thanks everybody out there in the chat. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We really do. Thank you so much. All your input is very welcome, and I appreciate it. I definitely, I'm trying to take that criticism, you know what I'm saying, and improve. So thank you very, very much for hanging out and being a part of the show. Definitely check out the Chrononaut Chronicles, mysticalwares.com, 13 Questions podcast, Cat in the Box. It's all happening now. It's springtime. Here we go. Get ready, everybody, for an amazing season this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is a big time summer of doing. I want to try to get out there and do as much as humanly possible. And I encourage you to do the same. Check me out, bootsygreenwood.com. That's my landing main page. There's some comedy and stuff on there. And then on bluecollarmystics.org, that is, there's some email stuff on there and other links to audiobooks and things like that. Shoot me a message anytime, reach out. And thanks again so very much for kicking it with us tonight. We'll see you guys very, very soon. Much love, many blessings. Peace.
Thank you so much.